The Way Back is directed by Gavin O'Connor and stars Ben Affleck as Jack Cunningham, a man who used to be a basketball player when he used to be in high school, one of the best. And since he's gotten older, things have not gone well for him. There's been a lot of personal tragedies, and he has resorted to alcoholism as a result of it. However, when he gets a chance to coach the basketball team that is currently at his old high school and try to make some differences with them and see if they can make the playoffs, he starts a self recovery path, and it leads to a very emotional and hard hitting sports movie that is sort of similar to stuff you've seen before. This is a film that I was vastly interested in because Ben Affleck and Gavin O'Connor previously worked on The Accountant, which I still consider one of the most underrated movies of the 2010s. I thought it was a fantastic movie. I know a lot of critics were split on it, but personally, I watched that movie many, many times now, and I still like it every single time I see it. And I thought it was one of Affleck's best movies at the time. But he has had a very rough few years, as you may know, if you've been reading some of the recent stories recently. He himself went through a phase where he became a severe alcoholic. He wasn't doing very well in life. He was very depressed, and recently he had a road to recovery as this film's production was going on. And so the script almost plays off coincidentally like you're seeing an autobiography of sorts, except that the basketball thing isn't real. But at the same time, it leads to a very affecting performance by Affleck because this movie ends up being incredibly personal to him. This performance of his actually might be his best. And the argument for that is definitely one that can be made. He has a very troubling story, and once you really start to put the pieces together on the things that have happened, which have led to him being in this state, you really feel for him. It's very easy to see this movie as a familiar sports movie, and I'm sure that's going to get a lot of criticism. And I would say my one issue with it is that yes, it does at times feel quite familiar. There are certain tropes in it and certain storytelling things you've seen before. But that's something that even the film has kind of admitted to. In fact, Affleck, in an interview, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel very recently, said that it has a lot of familiar stuff in it, which you may have seen before, but it's the way that it's handled that makes it so fascinating. And I think that's important because going into The Way Back, it's easy to say that you've seen this, redemption arc done via sports story before. But the film does a very good job of it, and Gavin O'Connor directed it wonderfully. The basketball sequences, one for one, are really well done. There's some really intense scenes, and as you're watching it from the court side to being in the middle of all the action, it is really well done, and the players, the actors that they've got, are all really, really great. The cinematography and the editing, those filmmaking things, all of that is on point. They did a really good job with that. It also has a really nice score. But the core of the film is this story, and it's about this man's personal tragedy. And so, in that, this film is where that needs to work. If this film has to work in any way, that needs to come across. And I would say, for the most part, it is very, very affecting. Is the movie maybe sometimes a little shallow and could have potentially been a lot deeper in those areas? Yes, I would say that's my other issue with the film. But aside from that, when it comes to the more hard-hitting moments of the movie, when the film really focuses on the alcoholism, the addiction, the depression, the mental health breakdown, when the film focuses on those things, it succeeds in spades. And I cannot praise Affleck enough. He's done such a brilliant job in this film. His performance is magnetic. This is one of those movies which comes along once in a while where everything sort of seems to align when you're telling a story, because Affleck's own story is so similar in ways, and he has some horrible times to account over the last few years. This movie almost comes off like a form of self-therapy for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if going down the line from here, he watches this movie and he refers to this movie as his healing factor. And that's perfectly fine. In fact, I would accept that wholeheartedly. It's not been a few years for him ever since Batman v Superman, which I don't mind that movie, but ever since then, things have been very shaky for him in personal life, and you could tell that even in interviews and even in public appearances that things seemed a little off. So with this movie, I feel like he's kind of got a way to showcase that, he's on turning over a new leaf. He's trying to make things a lot straighter, and I think the movie does a pretty good job of that. I keep coming back to that point because, again, that is the heart of the film. If that doesn't work, nothing else works. But they do a really good job with it. Like I said, my major issues were just the fact that I feel like it could have gone a bit deeper into its exploration of certain things. There are points of the film where I think it could have hit a little bit harder in terms of emotions. Like, there's a couple of sequences in the beginning where I didn't feel as much as I think the movie wanted me to feel or connect with it as much. But as it progressed, there were points where it did. So I don't know whether to exactly count that as a major flaw because the film does correct itself in that along the way. Like I said, the biggest issues for me are some familiar tropes and story points that you've seen before in sports films. Sometimes there's some uneven pacing that goes along with it. That's really it. Aside from that, The Way Back is a very affecting movie, and I think once again is a win for Gavin O'Connor and Ben Affleck's partnership. And I would say Gavin O'Connor pretty much has an unbroken track record personally. Like, I know everybody does not like The Accountant. Personally, for me though, I don't think he's missed a step so far. So I'm pleased. I'm gonna give The Way Back an 8.5 out of 10. Yes, I mentioned a few more flaws, but they're easier to overlook. It's just a few other things which I really point out as those are highlighted issues. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.